So as we kind of review this a little bit, couple of reminders on completing the square, especially if you missed it when we went through the first time. So job one, x's need to be hanging out on their own. So if they're not, that's our first job. And once we get them hanging out by themselves, we are going to put a blank on each side of our equation because the whole idea behind completing the square is, oh boy, this is going to be nasty. They're not all going to be this nasty. You're like, wait. You divide your b term, the one in front of x, by 2. You're like, wait a minute, Hardy. 11 in the notes. Well, Hardy, I got a decimal. Can I do a decimal? No. Well, what in the heck do I do with 5 over 2 then? Okay. Here's what we're going to do. I can square 5. 5 squared, 5 times 5 is 25. I can square 2. 2 squared is 4. You're like, Hardy, what in the daylights is this crazy crap you're trying to pull? Nothing complicated, I promise, because here's the trick that we know that's going to make this go easy. The trick when we turn this into a binomial square is one of two things. Either we cut this in half, 5 over 2, or you just take the number from parentheses. Well, what about that? Okay. 25 over 4 plus 1. We don't do decimals, though. Hardy, this is not looking simple. Not looking simple. It's still going to be. I'm still telling you. Because now, even if I use the example above, even though it's not a fraction, when I do my square root, sure, I can break this into pieces. Now, 29, I can't do a lot with 29. But the square root of 4, last time I checked, is 2. And all of a sudden, I have a common denominator. So what's my answer going to look like? It's going to roll the same way that the very first one we did, number 4, does, which is, I'm going to subtract this 5/2 over, but I cannot combine it with this part that has a radical. I could write it as -5 plus or minus the square root of 29 over 2, but I think this is going to be easier to deal with. So even in your worst case scenario, there's not that much that's going to be bad about it. So if there's no number in front of x squared, that's how we're going to take care of this. Now, here's the part that we didn't hit as deep before that I want to hit a little bit deeper on here as we start to get situated with this stuff. So, what if you're completing the square and the number in front of x squared isn't 1? Well, we got a pretty good example next door in number 8. Whatever number is in front of x squared, we're going to divide everything by it. Because that's going to take care of that piece. And now, it looks like the last one we just did, minus the fraction, of course. So, I get the 7 out of there because these x's want to hang out by themselves. With a blank. 0 plus 7 is 7. It also gets a blank, just like we did before. But this time, luckily for us, my number in front of x, my b term, is nicely going to be divided by 2. We're always cutting that in half. We're always dividing it by 2 and squaring it. Because then when I go to do my binomial square, x half of positive 6 is positive 3. I square root what's the square root of 16? 4. And so now this time, a little bit different of a situation. Because instead of just leaving it like this, since there's no radicals, we can actually do the math. Negative 3 plus 4 is 1. Negative 3 minus 4 is negative 7. And I can go further, because again, there's no radical this time. So, the only twist left, and it comes back from something we've done before. No, we are not going to graph these. Write the quadratic function. Ooh, in vertex form. Okay. What is the vertex of the function's graph? Complete the square. Well, wait a minute. So what the heck are we going to do here? Like, do I minus the 11 over? We could. Actually, let's do that. Because the x's still need their blank. So we'll still get the x's alone. Now, we're going to take that negative 8, that b term. We're going to divide it by 2. And we're going to square it in parentheses because we never should get a negative out of here. So we're like, okay, let's see. Negative 11 plus 16 is 5. And this, half of negative 8 is negative 4. But now, wait a minute. So write the quadratic function in vertex form. Okay, I got to remember real quick what vertex form is. Oh, yeah. The one where we can find the vertex without having to do a funky formula or anything like that. So I'm looking at this and I'm going, well, wait. I need y to be on a side by itself. So let's get this 5 out of here. Now those look alike. And then it says, hey, what's the vertex? It's the opposite of h. So that becomes positive 4. We just switch the sign. And we keep the other one. And that's it. So really, it's the same thing that we just got done doing, except we had one more step because we had to play with the y term. So let's play with one more, because I don't know if one example of that's going to quite cut it. So, all right. X is alone. And once the x is, oops. Almost lost my blank. That would have been bad. So x is alone with a blank. Y gets a blank. B term, divide by 2. Let's square it. Man, this is going to be a big old vertex, I think. Oofda. Half of 14 is 7, positive.
Why is x squared plus 14x plus 49 parentheses?
Because I put my parentheses a step too soon. I didn't need them.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm glad you asked. Yeah, I didn't need them that time that early. Here I do, there I didn't. And then we just work on getting y by itself. and get the weirdest vertex I think we've seen all year. Opposite of H. Glad we don't have to graph that. That would be kind of crazy. So, process the same. Whether I have to divide by a number, move it away from a y, don't have to do either. It's going to be the same stuff. So, what that's going to allow us to do now is when we get back into the practice. And again, I can't stress that enough for some of you at this time. This is where you can kind of push your way into another grade or just kind of fall off to the wayside. So, practice portion of this, we're going to start where we started on Friday, and I'll put this back in a minute. So we started with 1 through 6 on this 37 and 38. Now we're going to do 7 through 10. Let's just get some vertex form practice on 38. And then on 39, 40, you can do odds or evens. I don't care which. It gets you a little mix of the different types of problems that we've seen the last couple of days. But it also gives you an opportunity. Again, I'll still take practice from whenever. And if you still have a quiz or something, even from back a ways, I'll still let you do it. But start looking into those things to make sure that we don't get ourselves in a bind.